man, because he comes in right on time. And what do I mean by that? I'm telling you all that no matter what you're going through, if we just maintain and keep that belief and don't allow we see to affect us to the point that it starts messing with our belief, then whatever we put our hands to do and whatever we put our hearts to, the other will baruch us and he'll cause us to have it. So I praise him for meeting that need, not just a need, but meeting those needs that were pressing upon us as a congregation. With that being said, I want to take us to Tehillim, which is Psalms, and we're going to look at chapter 137, and we're going to look at verse 8. We're still talking about unmasking the end time beast and looking at Babylon and the daughter of Babylon. I know that many times we have heard, and you hear many people now, especially you hear the camps, and you hear many people talking about Babylon is America, and and even the white man is Esau. Those things are wrong, and they've been erroneously put out there. And so my assignment is to bring correction as a Mora to the things that have been erroneously placed, and to bring an understanding are and what is important to us as a people and what do we need to be doing in this time. So we're going to deal with this once again, unmasking the time beast, and we're going to look at Babylon and the daughter of Babylon. Now last week we talked about in that time I read to you about the what's the name, the Umayyad dynasty. We talked about that and how important it is to know about that dynasty. Also we talked about the Mali, I think that's the Mahdi, the Mahdi. And the Mahdi is that person, which we know, if you study or know anything about Islam, the Mahdi is can be a group of people or one sovereign person. And so you have to understand the Islamic people, the Muslims, are looking for a Mahdi to come and be their savior and to deliver them and to set what they see from their perspective things in order. Just like we are anticipating and looking for the Mashiach, they are looking for their Mahdi, which will be their Messiah. So with that being said, you have to understand they're looking for a set of rules and they're looking for things to be put in place, just like we are, which we know there's only one Mashiach, and that Mashiach is Yahush. And so it's important that we understand and be able to look in eyes through the Quran and through the writings, the scriptures, to see what they're thinking, what it is that they're going to be doing, and know how to counteract or know how and what to do during these times. And so it's imperative, very imperative and important. Now we know what we saw on January 6th, which was a momentous occasion. When I say momentous, I'm talking about what was done. These people were able to do the things that they did for them. It was a momentous occasion for them in the respect that they were able to pull this off. Now you have to understand, when I say pull it off, many people said it was fake. Many people said that it was staged. I don't care what it was done. Whether it was staged, whether they did it by force, or whether they were welcome in. You have to understand they did something that has not been done. And they were able to storm, whether they walked on it or crawled on it. They were able to change some things in the present that's going to definitely affect the future. So we can't deal with this and say, well, they affected the past, because you can't affect the past. The past has already moved forward. But they affected the present, and they are definitely going to affect the future. So someone will say, well, why would these things be taking place? And I just want to go real quickly to the right, and then we're going to get back on in these times. And so we want to stay calm and we want to stay focused. And I know sometimes when we see these things and hear these things, it can become very alarming, because and people are saying, oh my goodness, we're right here. Yes, we are in the end times and we're in the final stages, but y'all, there's still other stages that have to take place. Right. So the thing we don't want to do is we don't want to do like Chicken Run. I think that was her name, Chicken Little. We don't want to do like Chicken Little and start running and saying the sky is falling, and now we're just running with direction. excuse me, because the moment you start running without direction is the moment you're going to find yourself running into a catastrophe. You're going to find yourself running to a situation that could definitely cost you your life. So you definitely don't want to run without some type of guidance or some type of direction. And so with that, we want to read this in verse 9, chapter 21, verse 9 of Luca. And it reads, But when you hear of fightings and unrest, do not be alarmed, for these have to take place first, but the end is not immediately. Now listen what else it says. Then he said to them, nation shall rise against nation and reign against reign. And there shall be great earthquakes in various places, and scarcity of food and deadly diseases. And there shall be horrors and great signs from Shemaim. Are y'all hearing me? All right. But before all this, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, deliver you safe. And it shall turn out to you for a witness. Now listen to this. Therefore, resolve in your hearts not to premeditate on what to answer. But we know verse 15 says, for I shall give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to refute or resist. So y'all, we're in this making process. This is a time of making. And this is why it is imperative that we not become fearful. And then we start running behind any and everything that's calling itself truth, because that's where the issue comes in, and that's where problems will arise. In order to know the enemy, you got to study the enemy. In order to know who really is the enemy, you got to know who they are. And that may sound, funny, but it is important, because if you don't know who the enemy is, you don't know which way they're coming from, it's easy to run smack dab into their arms, believing that there is safety. And that is not so. That is not so. I know America is not the greatest place, but understand it is not the worst place either. Now, somebody will say, well, that's easy for you to say. No, I can say that because you got to understand, I'm the same color of you. Might be a little darker than some, but understand I'm Hebrew just like you, AKA also known as a black woman. So understand when I say that, understand it could be worse, but it is not. So it is important to us not to begin to complain, not to begin to murmur and complain and start wishing we wish we were somewhere else. Because you got to understand, no matter how bad it gets, there's so, but that we praise the Abba, find ourselves focusing on his instructions, and watch this, praying, talking about hard pressing, that we do not falter and fumble, but that those that are on the front line will maintain and remain in that position of authority and not relinquish it. And if they don't relinquish it, remove themselves to where it's just an unoccupied space, yet they call themselves that, but they're not there doing what they're supposed to do. So we have a lot to pray about, to keep from being idle. We have a lot to seek the Abba about and for. So there's no reason for us to be idle in this hour and this season. No reason. And one thing I have learned is when you have tasted of the greatness of the Abba and you have tasted of his truth, you don't want anything else. You don't want anything else, because nothing can measure up. Have you ever had for those of us that drink tea, have you ever had a nice large glass of cool, not ice cold, but cool tea? Room temperature tea, or you had some hot tea? When you get it fixed the right way for the first time, if it's not fixed right any of the next times, you don't want it. You want it fixed exactly the same way. Why? Because it's refreshing. You understand that, oh man, this tastes great, and I don't want it no other way but this way. And that's the way it is supposed to be with the truth. There is only one truth, and there's only one way for the truth to be conveyed and given unto us. And or reinforce in the hearts of us what's going on, and that we not become fearful of what's taking place now, but that we will remain steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of Yahuwah, knowing that our labor is not in vain in him, and especially when it's done for him and it's not done for vain glory. So that's important for us to understand. Are y'all following me? All right. Now, Babylon and the daughter of Babylon, very important, because once again, so many people are calling America Babylon. I've even heard people say New York is Babylon. There are so many places on the face of the earth that you could actually say, man, that would, if you were looking or trying to reason from this perspective, any place that does not have rules or abide by the rules or set a code of conduct, you could say it's Babylon. But we know it's not Babylon, because Babylon truly does have a geographical location. And it is imperative that we connected with that place so that we are not being misled. That is so important. Once again, I know there are lawless places, and there are places that are truly horrible, and nobody would, really wants to be there. Excuse me. Be there. Whew. Let me take a sip of my tea, y'all. All right. Now, nobody really wants to be in those places, no matter how lapidated, no matter how horrible it is, no matter what condition or state it's in. You got to understand, it is still not Babylon. Just like if it is not in their DNA and not in their blood, I don't care how they go in, I don't care what they do, they are still not it. Are y'all following me? So it is still not that place, regardless how bad it is, and regardless of what's going on in those places. That is okay. Now, in later prophecy, Saudi Arabia is referred to as the daughter of Babylon because it came out of the false religions of Iraq. That's why I said let's go to Tehillim 137 and 8, and let's read that 137 and 8. All right, read that for me, please. Was and it is so. And important that this is a preference or a prayer that's made that's talking about what's going to happen to Babylon. Now look at what it says. Why does the Bible call Saudi Arabia the daughter of Babylon? It is because the religion that Saudi Arabia proclaims as holy truth came right out of Babylon in Iraq. The worship of Allah is taken from the one that was once known as the god of Baal. Now, the picture of Iraq, or let's picture Iraq using King Nebuchadnezzar once in power. Remember Daniel and his 3 friends. They were renamed with Daniel becoming Belteshazzar. A name change means a nature. A post the other day, and it says, your name basically identifies you, and it does. It really does. Helps you to direct you and keep you in the place of truth. Many people want to truly identify with who we are. Yes, I would say change your name. Somebody would say, well, do I have to go through all the government changes? You have to understand, even if you go to the government and try to make a name to them for their approval, you're still going to them for their approval. So my thing is, if you're going to change your name, make sure you're getting a name that's going to identify you and that is going to be the one that is for you. Now you got to understand, we got many Deborahs, and I'm not being funny, but everybody does not add up and cannot walk in those shoes. That's why I was like, nope, I'm not gonna, I didn't mean any harm. And I know that I walk in the prophetic, but I did not want to call myself Deborah, because unless you can do what she's done, you cannot hold her name. If you, you can't, many people call themselves Sarah. And I'm not saying it, but I'm just telling the truth. And many have called themselves Dawood and others. Yo, you don't just grab a name. You don't just grab a name just because it sounds good, but you got to look at the character and the code of conduct, because when you call yourself by that, you got to be able to walk in the footsteps or come at least close enough to being able to handle and carry the weight of that name. Many people are fitting it at all. And you got to understand, there's a responsibility that is attached to the name that you carry. There is a great responsibility. And so what King Nebuchadnezzar was doing when he was getting them, he was changing their names. Why? Because he wanted them, basically wanted to pervert them, and he wanted them to be like everybody else. But that wasn't going to happen. Are y'all following me? Not in New York, but he was in Chicago, and his name was not Squeak. It was some, I can't even remember it. But anyway, he was 12 years old, and Yummy, his name I think was Yummy. 12 years old, y'all, he was a part of a gang. And the thing of it was that this is what they called him, because he would like to eat cookies a lot. But you got to understand, it wasn't just the cookies. He was hungry for always, being in something, always wanting to be at the helm of it, always wanting to be involved in it. And he was given a responsibility. And his responsibility, now this to show you how even gang members have ethics and they have codes of conduct. There ain't no such thing as anarchy when you are part of a gang. There are rules, and if you don't abide by those rules, you will get smoked, just like the opposite people, or your rivalry. And so it's important that you do these things. And so this person went and accidentally, this person was a bystander, innocent bystander, and he went and shut up this place trying to get at these rivals. And they got him and they said, oh no, he's become too much, to handle. And they thought that he would be a snitch because they kept knowing that the cops kept pulling him in. And so what they did, they took him out to the railroad tracks and they did him executioner style, shot him in the back of the head. What I'm saying, y'all, it's important that you understand names. And yes, I concur. Abba Yahuwah gave me my name. Mm-hmm. He gave me my name. I dreamed about it. And then one of my sons said, you know, I had a dream that this was your name and that this is what you were called. And it set right with my ruach. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is my name. This will be my name. So it is important that we understand that, like I said, because I'm not trying to be in the limelight. Are y'all following? Many times people grab these names to be in the spotlight, but you better understand the pressure that comes with carrying and the responsibility with carrying those names. And it's not just a name. Oh, you know, I'm Sarah and I'm this baby. You better be able to do what Sarah did. You better be able to duplicate that. Abraham, you better be able to do what he did. You better be able to do that. Are you hearing me? Ezekiel, Jeremiah, all of these. You better be willing and knowing what to do, because if you don't know what to do, you're just carrying a name. And that name is not going to really be able to resonate unless you're able to carry out the demands and that responsibility that's attached to it. So King Nebuchadnezzar, this is what he was doing by changing their names, because what he wanted to do was change their perspective and their character. That's why he did that. That's why you have to understand there is power in the name. And so a name change means a nature change. And this was what was effectively being done. Now, Yahuwah changed Abram's name to Abraham because Yahuwah called him out of Ur of the Chaldees. And so for Abraham, crossing over the river means crossing over from death to life. So he crossed over from death unto life. So his name, people grab names. You know, and they say, and then they'll say this, you know, they say that Abba spoke to me and gave me this name. I'm not disputing that, but I am questioning that, because if you can't measure up, then you don't need to have that name. Are y'all following me? That's important that we understand. Abram equals exalted father in himself. Abraham, exalted father with the hay or with the spirit of Yahuwah. Daniel, El, is my judge, or my judge is El. Belshazzar, Beltis, protect the king. So you got to remember, when he changed his name, instead of his name being power is my judge, he became now what Nebuchadnezzar wanted him to do, and that was to protect him at all costs. So what did that mean? That meant he was there to interpret dreams. But watch this, by the persuasion of the king. He wanted to be persuaded, because that was why he gave him that name, so that he could protect the king by any means necessary. But you got to understand, when you are dedicated and sold out to Abba Yahuwah, it doesn't matter what somebody else tries to rename you, long as you follow the code of conduct with the name that he's given you. And there has to be a point in our lives that no matter what, there are some things that we are just not going to do, regardless of what the populace does. Right. Because you got to remember, that's not me. I'm not that person anymore. I'm a changed person. And I only answer to that person that now I've become, and I'm growing up with that name. Because watch this, believe it or not, when all the stuff starts hitting the fan, guess who they're coming for? They're coming for the ones that have put themselves in leadership positions. That's where they're coming from. And if you're not a bona fide, born again, true leader in your heart, excuse me, that you're going to stand up and speak, regardless of somebody saying, if you say this, and I'm going to do this, and I'll do that, I'm going to put you in jail, I'm going to kill you, then you better make sure that you got a name that ain't nobody going to be looking for. Are y'all hearing me? I'm serious as serious can be, because this is important. Because who you identify yourself as is what you're going to represent and what you're going to put out there. That's important for us to understand. All right, now, the foreign names were meant to remove them from the one true power and change their nature, designed to distance them from the power of Yahshua. That was why it was designed to do that, so that they will forget about Abba Yahuwah and began to basically focus on their position and the changing of their name. Isn't it amazing that what's I'm about to say? They're a millionaire. Then they become Mr. and Mrs. Millionaire. They don't have an identity anymore. Why? Because they're identified through and by their possessions, not their character. And this is why it is important that we understand that when he calls us, and as we're being called, we answer to where we are and who we are, and not to what we were.
Mm-hmm.
Not to what we were. That's important to understand. And this is why, once again, you don't change your 7 years going on 8 years. Now, it's important that you understand, I didn't change my name right off. I carried my original name or my government name until the Abba began to deal with me about changing it. Why? Because I wasn't trying to do what everybody was doing. That's where you get into trouble. But when it came time for me and for my name change, I accepted it and I prayed about it. I knew I was going to catch some slack because family members, that ain't your name. That wasn't what you were born. That may not have been what I was physically born. But now that I'm born again, and this is my true identity, this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to run into some slack behind that. So be ready for it. Are y'all following me? All right. Now, it's important that we understand that. All right. Now, some of the things from the previous empire hides a spiritual truth that Islam has. Number one, Assyrians. They indoctrinated them to be absorbed in their culture, that is mixed into their society. Think about it. When we were many brought over here, and I believe that there were some here, but I also believe that there were many that were brought here. So either way, we're still going through whether you were already here or whether you were brought here. That's the bottom line. Understanding your positions and prince and princesses over here. What did they do? The first thing they did was gave them an English name. Kunta Kinte went from being Kunta Kinte to what? Toby. Are y'all hearing me? Change the name, you change the nature. And anybody that has ever watched Roots, and you realize that when they did that, they broke down our people. Just like today, you get named all these names, and then people be trying to name their child something unique and different, and they be coming up with stuff that you start thinking, what did you do? Just put a bunch of vowels and consonants together and name that child that? Because there is no real depth meaning to the name. Are you following me? Know the meaning. And so you have this, and what happened? Our people began to get these names, and guess what happens? Now they start changing. But wasn't it Fiddler, I believe, who called it? Was it Fiddler who called his daughter Kizzy? Was it Fiddler? I'm not sure if it's Kunta. Okay, thank you, sweetie. It was Kunta who called his daughter Kizzy so that she would remember. For her not to forget her roots, for her not to forget where she came from, because you will learn about who you are. And so these are some of the things that we as a people need to get in our brains, and even people that know, you had pet names when you were out there. You had things that people called you. You were known by certain nicknames. You can't even lose those, because if you are no longer attached to that life, then you can't even hold that nickname any longer. Are y'all following me? You can't hold that nickname, because if you hold that nickname, that's still a doorway to keep you into that lifestyle and into that code of conduct. So you got to understand this water runs deep. So it's important that we understand their whole purpose of doing that. You get a person in the culture and you get them in the society and you mix them into the society. Now they have to become and act. I'm not saying Sarah is a European name, because it's not. But Becky, you know what I'm saying? Becky. And I know some melanated people named Becky. I know some melanated people named Susie. Are y'all hearing me? So we look at these names, and most of the time we say, there ain't no black people names. Yeah, sure. All right. When I was pregnant with my last son, Jalen, I wanted a little girl. I wanted a little girl so bad. I thought I was gonna have a little girl. And before I had him, I had a miscarriage. Just hurt my heart so bad. And so I wanted a little girl so bad. And I was gonna name her Bianca. But you know what Bianca means, right? It means white. I thought it was just a pretty name. And I started researching, and I said, well, I'm not gonna name a little black girl, if I have a little girl, Bianca, because that means white. What would that do to her? My name means white, but I'm black. Y'all, that messes with people's minds. And so instead, when I found out that I was having a son whom I love dearly, and I don't regret having him, I named him Jalen Nariah. Nariah means light or lamp of Abba Yahuwah. Jalen is also, I liked Jalen. It was just a beautiful name to me. but Nariah means lamp of Abba Yahuwah. So I was very careful of what I named them, and even what I would allow myself to be named. Why? Because you only want to answer to, once again, who you are developing into culture. We're trying to steep ourselves in our culture. We're trying to learn our culture to lock it down so we can be defined. Watch this, by the Torah, which is also teaches us our culture, teaches us how to live, teaches us what to do and what not to do. So it's so important that we understand these things. And so those are the things, because if you change a person's name, now they got to learn the culture, and they got to learn the society, and then they have to try to integrate into that society. How do I know? The 95% of our people, well, no, I'll take it down to 75% of our people, because many of our people are conscious and awake now. And they said, I'm not straightening my hair anymore. I'm not wearing these people's clothes, because these are not our clothes. So I'm not going to wear their clothes. I'm going to wear my own clothes. Are y'all following me? Because I don't want to be identified with what's going on. I don't want to be identified with the system. I don't want to be known as being a part of this system. So what am I going to do? I'm going to change my attire. My name changed. So everything about me has to change. Are y'all following me? So that's important. But when you see our people walking around, and understand something, they have some gorgeous Hebrew. We have some gorgeous attire. I ain't gonna lie. I used to enjoy seeing my husband in a 3-piece suit that was cut. He's 6'2", and to see that tall brother in a nice suit that was fitting. No, that was just really nice. Are y'all following me? But because we have our own attire. Are y'all following me? Our own attire. You can still look nice and represent your culture. Represent the society that we are trying to birth in. Now watch what I say. In this society. Not necessarily trying to walk parallel with them, but living the way we're supposed to, and being able to be separated and identified by who we are. Because see, the most of the time when you see our people wearing that stuff, y'all know some of the stuff we say, they just trying to be white. Because, and it's the truth. People say this, if you've not seen the movie Antebellum, I said it before, please watch it if you have not. And I want you to check out her demeanor, because before Miss Thing was walking around and acting like somebody else, because she trusted them. So you got to understand, their whole thing is, if you identify with me, you're going to look. But if you are awake, then you will be trying to look the opposite of me, because you understand to emulate me says you want to be me. And there is not one bone in my body that makes me want to be remotely Chinese, white, Korean, Indian, none of those, especially the 2-cent ones. Are y'all hearing me? Because understand, I'm Choctaw and so forth. So I understand those things. But there are things in us that should be, when we come awake, says, no, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to look like the oppressor. I want to look different. I want to look like you, Abba Yahuwah. Because that's who I am. I'm in your image, so I want to look like you. So it's important to understand, like I was trying to show, because it's important, okay? All right. Now, Babylon, name changes plus bowing to their God. Allegiance to the flag. Respect, quote unquote, the so-called democracy and the so-called politicians and the politics here. Y'all follow me? This is the thing that really bothers me, especially when you see people in Christianity, because their whole mindset is, well, you know, we have to do what they do, and we got to be able to get along, and we got to learn how to do this. No, what you're saying is I got to learn how to make them happy and lose me. But you're supposed to break yourself down, follow their plan and their way, and do what they do in order to have what they have. That's not going to happen. All you got to do is go back in history. You will find out no matter what our people did, we separated ourselves from them, and that still wasn't good enough. Then when we did segregate ourselves and move ourselves away from them, they got angry. There was no pleasing these people except get away from them and find yourself distancing yourself from them and showing them, I don't want to be anything like you. And if you can't handle that, that's your problem, not mine. But you won't find anything in me that wants to be like you. Neither will I agree with what you've done. Now, we know on January the 6th, all the stuff that happened at the Capitol, right? They was climbing over the walls, and people got killed. They said 4 people died during this incident. They said, well, people opening the door and letting them in. Of course they were. Donald Trump is the president. You think he's going to have them have resistance when they get ready to go up in there? No. And whether it was staged or whether it was real, y'all, the thing of it is, it happened and it made history. It's making history. So the thing is, and people were recording it and people were laughing and they thought it was funny. And it's just, and for all of you, and this is what some Christians, our people, melanated people, black people saying, y'all, you can't, this seriously, but you ain't open your mouth about when the cops were shooting down our people. Right. Y'all, this is what I mean by conforming. And now you're following in their way. Why? Because you look just like them. Mm-hmm. This is exactly a double standard. And so with this double standard, now you say, well, we got to come together and we got to do this. The only thing we need to do is separate ourselves and pull ourselves away from this system that was never meant for us to be a part of anyway. Right. Mm-hmm. Never meant for us to be a part. Y'all, they've never changed the books. Never changed the books for slavery, segregation. They've never changed the books for these things. Now watch this. Why do you think they've created the bathrooms? And the bathrooms you got where the lesbians can go in, transgender bathrooms. Transgender bathrooms. They want the women to be able to go in one and the transgender to go in there. The dykes can go in with the men. You start thinking, why would you do that? Why, if you're going to do something, just give them a bathroom. But truthfully, they need to go to the bathroom that they were born with. I mean, for the gender that they were born with. Mm-hmm. But because they're trying to give them rights, they're trying to give them rights that we don't even have. Mm-hmm. Right. We don't even have, because I'm showing you, I'm not going to share a bathroom with you because you're not a woman. Y'all, they do it all the time. And then what the thing of it is, y'all, when you go into these restrooms, look at how they are now. And I'm just going to say this real quick and go back to what I was talking about. They go in, they bring little boys in there in the ladies' bathroom. They take them in there. Why? Because this is the mindset preparing them to be ready and comfortable with going in the bathroom. I've heard little boys say, I'm going in that woman's bathroom. Mama, let me go in the boys' bathroom. I don't want to go in there. Why? Because they're not comfortable with that surrounding. Mm-hmm. But once again, y'all, this is all towards the assassination of the gender of the male, masculate. As I say, how you say it? To emasculate the young boys before they even get old enough to understand what that really means. Right. They get them comfortable with going in a bathroom with a whole lot of women sitting down to use the restroom instead of going into the male's bathroom and standing up and using it. Mm-hmm. This is what they do. They want them comfortable with that type of setting. And so you got to understand with these things going on, we get to a point and we get comfortable and we say, wow, this happened and, they staged it. Y'all, whether it was staged or not, it happened. Right. And we should never let our guard down. And we should never get to the point that we are comfortable with that and say, oh, it's okay. They just doing what they do. No, they're just letting us know, y'all, whenever they want to do whatever they want to do, they can do it. It is about white privilege. That's what it's about. And that's why we as a people cannot conform to their ways, because guess what? You may be wanting that way and may be wanting to accept that way, but you will never be accepted into that arena or into that circle. Mm-hmm. I don't care how many suits you put on. I don't care how many bank accounts you have. You will never be accepted into that arena. Mm-hmm. So it's important we change. And my personal belief is that you're basically telling us to accept what happened. Right. Why? Because this is who you are. If you have been indoctrinated into this, then that's what you're telling me. Accept what happened and don't focus on it, which is wrong. No, we need to deal with it and then move on. It ain't over with. There's some more stuff that's going to come behind that. So it's important that we understand that. And once again, this is also what we're looking at, but this is still not Babylon. This is not Babylon. We're just saying some horrible things that are taking place here in America. Now, Islam does all of these and more. You see, converts to Islam, English, American, and Caucasian people suddenly acquire a dress change, wearing Arab-style dresses, getting a name change to a Muslim name, and no longer worshiping the true power. All these traits exist in Islam, and they are reflective of the empires above, reflective also of what the anti-Mashiach nation will do. See, that's the thing. You got to understand, we're not just dealing with one person. We're dealing with a nation of anti-Mashiachs, a nation. And so it's imperative that we know what that nation is, what they will be capable of doing when flowers start budding. We know when the bees start coming out. Watch the animals. You know when the season changes. See, because that's how we live our life, according to seasons, not month to month. Sure. We are a seasonal people. That's why we have what, 4 seasons? We have beginning with spring, summer, then fall, then winter. We live according to the seasons. And so we know the seasons. Why? Because we start watching everything as it starts changing over into the season. When it started getting cold and it was time for the fall, we start seeing the leaves and stuff fall, and some of them change. When winter came in, that's when you start seeing the trees get bare naked. They get bare, no leaves. Why? Because they're letting us know this is a time of sleep. This is a time for the leaves or for the thing here, y'all. We're seeing these things, and never take a blind eye or a deaf ear to what's happening. Never let anybody convince you where stay. So, don't focus on that. Okay. That's a problem with our people. Once again, that says now you are accepting it. And you're saying, well, we're just going to move forward and we need to come together, 4 or 5 black people of their tokens. And this is my personal belief. I believe that they were either threatened or paid. Somebody said, well, you don't think they went on their own accord? I believe that they were paid or they were threatened. Because if that's the case, how come there wasn't more? All these Trump supporters, how come, and they were supposed to be black, how come they wasn't there? I'm sure when it was your time, I supported you. Now leave. Once again, you got to look at what's going on, look at it carefully. One of the pictures showed a couple standing up there with Caesar Borgia with a red cap on that Trump would wear. That lets you know what they believe. So all of you Christians out there that believe, well, these Caucasians, it doesn't matter the color of their skin, just as long as their blood runs red, we are family. No, they're not, because it's amazing. They stormed the Capitol because Trump didn't want to leave, and because they feel like they were treated unfair because of the votes. But these same ones will turn right around, some of them, and say, well, that was wrong for them to shoot that man down. I ain't see y'all storming the building for that. Right. To get some laws changed. So you got to understand they're selective in doing what they want to do. And while we sitting up there saying they're playing, no, we need to be looking and saying, y'all, they're making a statement. Right. They think that's going to be done to them, so they think. Okay? So those are things. All right. Now, let me get back to my page. Excuse me. All right. Now, it's important that we understand that. Now, no, Islam is designed takes effect. You got to understand this is what's going to happen, but it's a time frame when all this stuff is going to be effective or in effect. It's important we understand that. Let's look at Jeremiah chapter 50 and let's look at verse 42. We haven't seen that it's so. Let's get 50 and 42, and then let's get 51 and 33. All right. 50 and 42.
For the bow and the lance, they are cruel and will not show mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon.
And it is so. All right. Now, this is Saudi Arabia. Once again, this is talking about Saudi Arabia. The daughter of Babylon, Saudi Arabia, is mentioned, which will be utterly destroyed. Let's look at Jeremiah 51 and 33.
Jeremiah 51 and 33. For thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the power of Yasharal, fair Babylon is like a threshing floor, ready to be trodden. In a little while, her harvest time will come.
And now, perhaps the time that there is a time for these things to take place, and it's going to take place. But once again, Babylon is not America. Many people don't believe it, but America is truly going to be a safe haven for a lot of us that are here and can't migrate or can't go anywhere else.
Okay.
Are y'all following me? Many of you may not believe it, but it is. Because you got a country to another place. You think he's going to allow this place to be destroyed and we're still here? That's not going to be so. So he's going to take us up in his time and we're going to leave. But there are things that have to be done. And so while we're here in these places, so it's important that we understand that. And so it's important that we understand this. All right, now let's look at Zechariah and let's go back to, then we're going to go back to Jeremiah chapter 4. And we're going to read this and then we're going to stop. All right. All right, let's look at. All right. Get ready to read that for me, please. All right, read for me.
Come, O Zion, escape, you who live in the daughter of Babylon.
And it's so Saudi Arabia. You know, a lot of our people do live in Saudi Arabia.
Huh.
You got a lot of Hebrews in Saudi Arabia, whether it is because they were in the military and they got shipped over there and came in the truth, or whether they were over there and stayed over there, or whether place. But many of our people are over in Saudi Arabia, so the Abba is giving them time to remove themselves. Are y'all following? All right. The master is warning Yasharal for any of those of our people and listen at this, Christians to escape this land before the destruction comes upon Saudi Arabia. Now, someone will say, why would we include Christians? The reason why I believe is because remember, many of our people, many of the tribes are still stuck in that that way of life, that false religion. Because you got to remember, when our people were coming out of slavery, some of them, that's all that they had to identify with. Many of them, it was a choice. I remember speaking with a Hebrew sister, a mother. I came here to class with us about maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. And she was of the tribe of Gad. She's from the tribe of Gad. And she could talk all about it. And she told me that there came a time in her parents' lives where and this is the renewed covenant and them walking in truth and which way they were going to go, what they were going to do. And she said she remembers seeing her father, and that's why they were Torah only. They didn't believe in the renewed covenant because she said her father desired to stay in that what he knew and understood. So they didn't cross over, come into that understanding the renewed covenant. Well, you got to understand, when many of our people came out of slavery, some of them, that's all they had been indoctrinated with was Christianity. Because remember, if you're getting beaten and you're getting told, don't remember this, and you don't have the willpower to remain committed to your culture and to what it is that how you've been raised, then over a period of time, the only thing they felt that could get them by. And by doing so, they went to idolatry. Every new power or God that came on the scene that they knew about, they had to worship it. They had to find a way to get Abba Yahuwah disgruntled with them behind going after other powers. Remember, he said, don't go after the other powers of the people that are round about you. Everywhere they went and they saw something new, they were like, hey, touch it. Hey, experience it. Instead of remaining committed to the Abba, this is what they did. And so we're seeing the results of it even in our time through Christianity. They chose to remain in Christianity. So we're not praying that they be destroyed, but we're praying that they are delivered in their hearts so that they can come out of that dilemma and they don't die in it. So he wants to bring them out because these are the tribes. I'm not talking about European Christians. I'm talking about our people. The ones that have been lied to, the ones that have been misguided and made to believe that this is what they needed to help them. And this is what they gravitated to just to survive and to maintain. If you're being beat half to death and you ain't got nothing else and this is what they offer you, what you going to do? Take it or reject it and continue to get beat? You're going to take it because you don't want to continue to get beat. Are y'all following me? That's important. So, these are some of the things that are important for us to remember. So we don't want to cast them, throw them away. We want them to come into truth. We want them to denounce Christianity relinquish Christianity and come on over into the truth. But this is where we've got to be able to present to them, because you got to remember, they're looking at us have our civil wars too. They're looking at how we treat one another. They're looking and saying, well, if I go into that, I don't want to be trading one situation for the next.
Right.
I don't want to be going into what y'all call truth and you still got clicks. You're still real funny. You still act real facetious towards one another. I don't want to go into that because at least I've been in this all my life and I don't want to go into something that I'm uncertain about. That's why we as the children of Yahshua have to present to them the message of truth, the Besora, which is the great news. But if you can't, and many of us don't see it that way. We think, oh, I'm doing great. And yet we clickage. I saw a post where a sister said, I'm tired of Facebook. She said, I'm tired of these so-called Hebrews. But there are those of us, and myself included, that's fighting to maintain a code of conduct. I have learned, be angry, but sin not. I have learned, hey, you can come at me and do whatever you want. My desire and goal is to continue to live a lifestyle that promotes Torah truth. From the first covenant to the renewed covenant, that shows our people, look, that's not it. And though you have been made to believe that that's the only way, that is not the way. There's only one way, and that is through the Torah. Yeah. But then, y'all, you got to understand, we got to deal with these lying prophets. And believe it or not, they got some kind of power and influence, and they have something over the hearts and the minds of our people. I was looking at a post where a brother put up, and he was talking about, y'all know when Paula White called herself praying for the angels to come from Africa. Well, he got all 5 of the black politicians that were voted into office saying that those were the 5 angels that came from Africa. And I said, I don't play games. And I'm like, well, you don't understand, because if you ask any one of them if they are from Africa or if they are for the people, they're going to tell you they're for everybody, and they're not going to identify in no form, shape, or fashion to Africa or anybody that calls themselves Hebrew or African. They're going to be just a bunch of Obamas in place. Kamala Harris has already proven she ain't for nobody, for us. And yet you promote this. But watch this once again. When people are blinded in their minds and in their hearts, you got to prove to them and show them and take that blindness away. You got to reveal to them or pray that the Abba uncovers their eyes to the real liars and the fakers. Because until that happens, guess what? They will continue to be mystified. They will continue to romance the lie because that's all they know. But we as a nation of people have to do better. We do. We have to do better. Why? Because they don't want to see us over here. When we first came into this truth, there were many people that I saw, talk with, and walk with. Them people have gone back into Christianity. Why? Because one of the number one things they have said in their complaint is that we are not friendly enough and we don't love enough. And then they can't fellowship because we're in different places. Y'all, it ought to be that when we meet one another, that there ought to be an exchange and an impact, regardless if we're online or if we see each other in a store. There ought to be something that is deposited in your ruach that says, I might be here, but I know I'm not alone. Because I know them people in South Carolina praying for me, and they're calling my name out, and they're talking about me, not in a negative way, but they are there for me so that anything happens, I know they are praying. And I'm not saying we're the only ones, but I know what I'm doing here. I can't speak for anybody else, but I know what we are doing here. It ought to be an exchange, an equal exchange, so that they say, you know what? I'm really considering what you said, because you dropped some knowledge. And not just dropping the knowledge, but dropping also relationship. People want relationship. That's why people stay in abusive relationships, because they just want to know or feel like they belong. So they will stay in an abusive, whether it's verbal or whether it's physical, just to say that I have something in my life. They will do it. They will stay in Christianity because they feel like if I go over into that, I'm going to lose out. So it's within us to prove to them, you don't lose, you gain. You gain, you don't lose. So it's important that we understand that. And it is so. All right. Now, it's important, once again, the master is giving time to the daughter of Babylon Saudi Arabia, before the time of her destruction, perhaps some people there will certainly repent and come out. Now, Zechariah 2:7, up Zion, escape you, who the master is warning us as a people to come. And then Daniel chapter 4, verse 13. All right.
Making mention to the nation. Behold, published against Jerusalem, that watchers came from a far country and give out their voice against have been rebellious against me, says Yahuwah. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, make mention to the nations. Yes, proclaim against you, come from a far country and raise their voice against the cities of Yehuda. Like keepers of a field, they are against her because she's been rebellious. There is a prophecy in Jeremiah that these come from all over the world to proclaim Yahush as their Mashiach, meaning, once again, Yasharo. Yasharo. Are you following me? Yasharo. Now, it's important that we understand that Yahush, the Mashiach, was called one who is from the city of the branch, that is Netzareth or Nazareth. It is actually Netzer, one of the titles given to the Mashiach, or the Mashiach, of being a Nazarene. And all his early followers were called Nazarenes. You can look at that in Matthew chapter 2, verse 23, and Acts chapter 24 and verse 5. It's translated in the Bible as watchers apply, as sometimes they apply to the angels because of the malach. The underlying Hebrew word is different. That is like in Daniel 4 and 13. A watcher ascended, and the Aramaic represents that, because you know how sometimes we'll take one word and we'll believe that that one word defined as that means that's all the word, that same word throughout the whole writings means the same thing. No, that's not how that applies, especially with Hebrew words. Now you can take a word like what is a word? What is a word that we have? Not post. What is a word in the English language that can be used for 100 different things? Combo is another one. What is that? So you got to be careful with that. Hebrew, we don't have words where you got one word that is represents or can be said. That word or those two words can represent the same thing. Or your phone. In other words, like how we do. What is another word? What is a word we can use in here? What is an Hebrew word? I'm trying to think. Asha. Asha means what? Wife or woman? It can mean both wife and woman. Okay, so that's a word for woman, and it's also a word for wife. So we understand that can be used for that, but it does not mean mistress, and it doesn't mean girlfriend. It just means those two things. Are y'all following? So when it comes to, once again, words, the English, which is a bastardized language, can take one word, and that word or those two words can have the same sound and have different meanings. That's exactly the same. But unless you know what you're putting it in sentences, like plane, we're getting ready to catch a plane. Not the paper is plain. So if you don't know how to spell it and you put the wrong one in place, then it's going to throw the sentence off. When you get ready to catch a plane, that's plane, right? Yes. Now, plane, meaning that the picture was plain, is plain. But if you don't put it in the right way or you spell it the wrong way, people don't know what you're talking about. Right. You know, I'm about to catch a plane. If you put plain in there, they're going to be like, you're getting ready to catch a what? That makes no sense. Why? Because it's a bad language. So you got all these words all over the place and they mean so much. So now if people, that's why they have to have 4 and 5 dictionaries with these words in there that tell you, okay, that word, even though it says the same thing, it's not the same word. So you got to go through all these changes. But here we understand that there are certain words that do not mean the same thing every time you see it in the writings. So that way you're not saying, oh, they're watchers. Oh, that's a watcher. Oh, that's a watcher. You know how everybody do because they get a revelation. Now they are a prophet, or now they are a teacher, or more or mora. Right. Are y'all following me? Or they have the internet. Now they feel like they are licensed and qualified to do. Well, these are things, y'all, we have to be very, very careful of. You have to be very careful because you don't want to put yourself in that position. All right, now, and this is what he says. They are against her because she has been rebellious against me, says Yahuwah. These are the people that's speaking out. People like us saying, yo, we got to get in right. We got to do what we're supposed to do. So we are making it plain that we're not walking in agreement with the things that are being done. We're not in agreement with the rebellion and with the error that's going on. Because we understand we're in this situation because understand we're being punished. That's why we're out. That's why we're out of place. In other words, like people say, we're out of pocket. We're out of place. Why are we out of place? Because of the rebellion of our ancestors. So wherever you are, if you're not at home, and none of us are because he hasn't taken any of us there. Many people are there, but that just because they're there and the Abba opened the door doesn't mean that now they are still not qualified or under the jurisdiction of a punishment. You know, when they say we're still under the punishment, there are some things that we're still under until the Abba takes us and puts us home. We're displaced. I put it in that manner. We are still displaced until he comes and takes all of us and puts us at home and puts us take us home. We're all displaced. Are y'all following? We're still displaced. And so understanding that now helps us to understand, yo, we are still crying out against the rebellion. We're still telling our people, yo, we got to get right. Before you bring anybody else in, let us get right.
Right.
Let us make sure that we are doing everything that he's called us to do before we start trying to open the door for somebody else to come in. All right. And that you can see in Daniel chapter 4, verse 13. Let's look at that, please.
Daniel
Verse 13.
14. And now in the vision, Shemaim, and it is so.
Now look what it says. In visions of my head on my bed, I looked and saw a watcher, even a set apart one, coming down from the Shemaim. Now give understand that everybody is not a watcher, but we all are set apart. Okay? Because we are following him. Once again, we're going to stop right here. And I pray that what has been said and that information that has been given, that you take that information and you ruminate on that information. Why? Because once again, there has to be clarity to who, and I can assure you, it is not Rome, it is not the Pope, and it is not that even Christians. No, Christians are displaced. Our people are displaced. So those are the things we have to get a greater understanding of, because you know people have said that said that Jesus. I'm so accustomed to saying Yahush and not Jesus, but that Jesus is the anti-Mashiach. Jesus is not the anti-Mashiach. Are y'all following? He is a figurehead. You got to understand, Constantine created a system. He created a hub. And his hub was to be everybody up under it, all nations, all religions that will follow under him and follow him and work basically peacefully with him. You got to understand, Caesar Borgia is a figurehead. Christianity is a system. It is a system that was created by them so that everybody, all religions would be up under this one hub. Now, I know that Caesar Borgia and Jesus Christ and all that goes against, watch this, goes against the truth, but they created him. They created this system so that all religions, now I don't care where you go, you always going to have those that say respectfully, I respect Jesus Christ, but I don't serve him. Why? Because that is the authority and the power that has been placed upon him by the Pope and by the Roman Catholics. Are y'all following me? Even though they make Mary the so-called quote unquote head person because she's the only one that can deal with him because he's so angry. You got to understand, this stuff is so twisted and so diabolical that it's not funny. But our people have gotten so indoctrinated with it that only thing they can see is what they believe to be right. There is an anti-Mashiach, and we can't go labeling anybody and anything as the anti-Mashiach, because if you throw the context off, the conclusion is going to be off. And if the conclusion is off, that means it cannot have an ending. And believe it or not, y'all, there is going to be an ending to this. Right. But knowing where and who that ending is going to be with is so important to our life. And if we don't know it, it becomes detrimental to us, because now we're calling something that is not what it is, something that is not as it is supposed to be. Basically, we're saying it's misnaming, mislabeling, and basically trying to put it all together, and it becomes a big old mess. And that is what we are trying not to do. We're trying to avoid that, so that when these things happen, we know what to do. My last thought: anybody has ever seen movies where there's always a large animal? Anybody has ever seen what's the name now? You watch that one too. The reason I say watch that one is because watch the masses. When stuff starts falling and stuff starts happening, guess what people do? They just start running wherever a person runs. They just follow the crowd. Following the crowd will get you killed if you don't know who the crowd leader is.
Right.
And so they're running in the direction of the thing and all the stuff that's falling, and people are dying by the handfuls because they're only running. Why? Because they see other people running. Sometimes we do certain things because we other people doing it. We say certain things because we hear other people saying it. But now when it comes down to it, we ask ourselves, wait a minute, wait. If he is not it, and then what is he? What is he doing? And what's going on? We got to be able to identify these things so we can understand. Once again, Christianity was made and created to constantly keep us out of the mercy of Abba Yahuwah. It was created to keep us out of the mercy and keep us out in truth. But there is an anti-Mashiach, and that anti-Mashiach and his group, his nation plus, are going to reveal themselves eventually. And when they do, we want to know who they are, so we know what to look for and how to recognize them. And which we already know is going to be the Islamic nation. If you look up, the Islamic nation is going to be here. That means there's going to be people that are going to defect from all angles and walks of life to be Muslims. Because remember, their whole agenda and promotion is peace. But you better understand there is no peace in Islam.
That's right.
Not even for those that walk in it. It is no peace in it. So with that being said, I pray once again that you read your verses, and Yahuwah willing, we'll be back again to finish. When I finish, we'll go through some more of this. It's phenomenal. It's important for us to understand it, especially in the time that we're living in. Don't let nobody tell you that COVID is the mark. Don't let anybody tell you that philosophy is the mark of the beast. There is a genuine. The beast is the one that it is designed and assigned to. Nobody else. So people run around here talking about, well, they got the mark. They put a mark on them. That is not the mark of the beast. Maybe a mark of stupidity, but it is not the mark of the beast. Because the writings say that there are certain events that have to take place, and they are the only ones that will be able to administer and give it out. So let us not be fooled and not just be something, just we do it whenever. No, let it become normal in prayer. But let's also ask the Abba in his timing to allow us to connect so that we can exchange information, y'all, because this is important. And I know I said I was gonna say one more thing, but I got one more thing to say. It's important that we connect because we don't know how long we'll be able to use the internet before they shut it down. Now, they've already taken Trump and they basically banned his stuff off of, what was it, Twitter? What else? Twitter and something. We ain't got nothing to do with that. But watch what I say. Our people are going to catch the backlash for it. So it's best that we start getting names. You can't reach me this way. I got an address. You can send it to me. I got an email. You can stay in contact. Because you got to remember, this was an experiment. Facebook was never intended for us. It was for college students. And they opened it up and then used it to communicate with our people and to spread truth. But it was only an experiment. And so you got to understand, all experiments come to a head. And so before it comes to that place, let's make it a point to connect and get information from one another. So when we can't see each other by way of internet or by way of streaming, we can still connect to one another. If it's by an old-fashioned letter, if it's by an email, or what have you, why we still have to do so. So once again, let's do that. And let's definitely pray for one another. Keep your head up, keep your shoulders squared, and keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because you can't go wrong when you make this the center of your life and you continue to stay focused. Hebraic Belief Congregation located in South Carolina. I want you to remember here at Messenger Kingdom Hebraic Belief Congregation, this is the place where the Torah does the body excellent. Until next time, remember, the push is on. Work smarter, not harder. Also, you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside. And it is so.
And it is so.
Peace and blessings. Shalom to you.
This is Champion TV.